Hey, you guys, this is Death College, and you are tuned into the Academiagothica official podcast. This is season 7, episode 7. And wow, what a Sunday it has been. So, over the weekend, I took a little trip to Tarot Land, right? I don't. I don't read tarot cards really. It was something that I had taken an interest in some time ago, I guess, for my own understanding of like how it worked. And obviously, like I've always been sort of a God-fearing person. Never really consigned myself to any spirituality that did harm, although I understand that some people do. Um, I was never into that. Even when I was like, making like oils and I don't know, like herb mixtures and stuff. It was always like really like mild stuff that I would do, and even then I would like, I would pray to God to bless them. So I don't even know if that qualifies as anything that would like, you know, do anything to anyone that was like harmful. But I've been, man, I don't know, in my life, I've just experienced a lot, and it was almost like I don't know how to phrase this really because it sounds kind of it could sound kind of strange to hear it, but I really do feel that God himself, whatever powers were there, has been guarding my life for a really long time. And, that's not something that I feel would be responsible to downplay because of how much I feel that God's influence has like helped my life and protected me from things that could have easily tempted, hurt, and as a result, taken people away from their lives. And I'm just grateful for that, and I'm grateful for the people that I've been able to reach and people I've been able to give hope to as a result of all of all of these experiences that have, shaped who I am really. And um man, I just when I got into the tarot thing just to seek like image based clarity for what I was already kind of feeling, cuz I don't really rely on cards to tell me, you know, stuff. It's I don't because I don't really read. Like I've owned decks before, and I don't read them. It's like I'm not one of those people that sits there and like harps over tarot cards and wonders like what's this person doing. Like I've never been that kind of person. I just don't have an interest in invading people's space that way. I mean, I really feel like that's what that is when you read energy that isn't already being presented to you like at will, you know what I mean? But this particular situation this weekend, I was like, I don't know, man. I'm getting like some kind of inclination to kind of read into what's going on. I need like something to come to me. And the messages did come to me. And man, when I tell you, the thing about reading tarot is that pretty much anyone can pick up a deck of cards and like, you know, start to understand and piece together what's being brought to them, but not everybody can like connect as quickly and as thoroughly as others can. And I'm not really sure what does that. I'm not really sure what creates that kind of a situation. I've heard from other sources that it's like divine channeling delegated to the person who is meant to know that information. There could be like something called a star seed influence on that. If you don't know what that is, it's like, there are people who have abilities that like unlock them over the course of their lives and like tap into information that isn't apparent or obvious. And it's like I guess it's like a part of their calling in life to use that information to give it to people so that they can be warned about stuff. Like there's just a lot of really helpful kind of energy about this. And I've heard other people discuss it as like, a thing where like when you have this ability to do these types of things for people, it's usually something that they call God-given, but it's also something that you can use to help people, and that's the intention. I'm not sure if everyone uses it for those reasons, because, I'm sure that there are some people who have like strayed from their own gifts, who have, not really used them to the best of their discernment and ability, but I'm not one of those. If there's anything that I've ever like stumbled upon in the way of information, I've always felt inclined to try to heal people with it, or like offer them some kind of peace. I mean, this world as it is, I mean, people really do their darndest to create peace for themselves at the expense of others, when it's like the peace is already there for you and you just have to find it within yourself. It's not really on someone else's payment, especially if you're already doing good things. Like, how would you be lacking that much peace in your life to begin with? I feel like we can find peace in one another by doing our best to understand each other's circumstances and try to, like, all of us resonate with better behavior. But this is also, it's a social climate thing. It's what people normalize. This is less spiritual, of course, but it affects the spirit of things, like all of it really. And well, specific to my circumstance within the context, not to get off track of reading the cards to see like what else would come up, there was a lot that I don't think I was like I don't think I was ready to hear or learn of these things, because it's there are times when, like, you'll read, if you read the cards, right? There are times and opportunities for information to show itself, but like sometimes if you're a channel for certain information, or like you're handed information from the spirit, which really it communicates through images, through circumstances, through things that align themselves. Like if you look into energy and how it works, like energy attracts like energy, and energetic attacks, if we're talking about that, has to do with like changing the atmosphere of something to something that it's not, in order to pull someone's energetic field toward them. And the energetic field there is like something as simple as a mood. If someone's trying to ruin your mood so that you can align with their bad mood, that's considered an energetic attack. So it's like really simple stuff like that that ends up, I guess, maximizing itself on a grander scale if someone is repeatedly being attacked so that someone else can get ahead of them. And that's one of the problems that the spiritual communities, otherwise known as tarot land in some cases, tend to talk about a lot. But specific to this circumstance, it's appearing that, like, there seems to be a lot of like trying to shuffle responsibilities onto other people to cover their own butts, and like, I'm a person who goes to church, and I don't try to navigate my life with anything but God, really. Like, I don't wake up every day like reading my cards like, what's next for me? Like, no, I don't. I trust God. I trust God, and I've had people outright tell me that I worship the wrong God. And I worship the Most High God, the one from, the Bible. But I've had people who I found out later were cultists outright tell me that I worship the wrong God. And it's like, I didn't even have it in my mind or my heart at the time to try and contest it, because I didn't even understand where something so aggressive would come from. And then I realized that there are people actively trying to force people into agendas and narratives and things that have nothing to do with God at all, with the exception of trying to destroy the spirit of unity and God in other people, so that they would have no choice but to turn to a God that is actually false, because it's the only one left standing in their eyes. But that's not, I mean, if you really know how God works, that's not at all how that goes. It, it turns into what I can only describe as like a spiritual side quest, where you go through this whole, this whole smorgasbord of experiences that really never needed to happen, because they weren't even God's plan, but they work their way into God's plan as a lesson. And that's basically how that ends up. And it's like all people who believe in spiritual advantage or spiritual, I guess you could say, spiritual comprehension. Let's just leave it at comprehension, because it's not even about having an advantage or a vantage point. It's not a war. It's not supposed to be anyway. Um, but like, one of the reasons why people become spiritual is because they understand that through all things that they go through, no matter what faith or creed they're following, it's supposed to be about respect. And what's so important to recognize about this respect, right, is the fact that the disrespect placed in this rightful respect place always comes back to the person who sends it. So it's like, if your entire faith or what it is that you do in your life represents putting other people down to make your way, you're going to fall as high as you climbed. And you're not going to expect it. There are a lot of thieves. There are a lot of people feeling like forced to be a certain way because they think that that's just the way to be. And they're not, willing to change. They're not interested in changing. These are the people who are forgiven, the 70 times 7 times by God, I guess you could say, by the universe, to see what changes they will make. And that last time that they're forgiven, they don't even have the chance to see what's coming to collect off of their repeated disrespect. And it's like, sometimes it takes a person to really decide, like, no, I'm just going to keep doing this, for that to be the thing that ends up nailing their foot to the floor, you know? And it's like, I try not to see the bad in people, but it's like some people really genuinely don't resonate with good behavior. And it's like you can see it in them. They put on this face of success, and it's always at the cost of someone else, And I feel like the people who have the most financial, complaints are the people who were already so ungrateful to try to take what would make another person grateful from them in order to gain it, just to lose it. And they do. They always lose it. Like, people who are grateful for things don't lose things. And, I live a life of gratitude, thankfully. I earned that understanding, that comprehension of gratitude, because it's not, I don't know if I don't know, man. Comprehension of gratitude is one thing, and then like practicing it is another. Like, I don't know if I always in my life knew the depth of gratitude, but I practiced it. It wasn't just saying thank you. It was like knowing that the fact that someone would come through for you and like help you with something, even if it were simple, was a gentle gesture. But like, the thing is, the devil will always help you after he's caused the problem. You know what I mean? He'll always be like, yeah, no, I'm here to help you, even though I staged the problem that you're experiencing right now. And sometimes the devil will just approach you with a happy, smiling face, like, yeah, I'm new. I'm here. I'm here for you. I appreciate you. And it's like, the devil doesn't appreciate his own dad. The devil doesn't appreciate his own, place where he fell from. There's no way he would appreciate you. And that's kind of the vibe that I want to address in things, like, as a person who like can recognize these things, I feel like it's my responsibility to point it out, because there are so many people who would respond to that kindness and end up hurting themselves, and then lose faith in kindness as a result. And that's wrong. That's not what life is. That's not what life is about. It never was. A lot of people will try to convince you that Satan works quickly because he wants you to be happy. Satan doesn't actually work or do anything for you. He makes you do all the work and then steals from you and leaves you fucked over. That's what he does. I'm going to use that language because Satan is not a person who respects you, and you need to know that that language is suitable for him. He is, as an entity, as an energy, as a representation of a mode of operation, everything about hell and everything about the legion of Satan is rooted in your despair being your only reward at the end of every journey you take with him. And that's why he's the opposite of God. Because yeah, you may go through some mess with God. You might go through some dramatic upheavals with God, but God actually rewards you. And those rewards stay with you. They don't get taken away. They don't get yanked out from under you. And I guess that's why I was so insulted by that one person who was like, pro non-worship of the Most High, being so aggressive about why something else should be revered. And it's like, whether you're talking about Allah, God, what people refer to as source or the universe or whatever, like, it's God. It's just God, It's all the same essential forgiveness and human respect, comprehension being exercised, I feel. But like the antithesis of that can't possibly be God, because God isn't cruel to people who show respect to one another. Why, like, what if you think about it, like, what's the incentive in that, right? It doesn't even make logical sense for people, let alone the spiritual aspect of it. So in a daily interaction, it's like a person who actively goes out of their way to prove how powerful they are by being disrespectful is just like they're already on the losing team. And it's like, I don't even know if they see it yet, which is kind of sad. But
God,
people will do their
only
best.
God
can open those eyes. So we're just gonna leave that there.
Baneful acts against people, and they will be denied
every time, which is what it is. Yeah, spirituality it's just it's one of those things where they are just gonna have to take it as another person's heart and mind and discovery, like the point of discovery
to be learned
that a person can reach.
I feel like
about themselves,
I feel like God protects
and
people
all
who
of
have
all of the
genuine
gifts they already
intentions,
have as a person. Organic food, things that they can enjoy, things that they can grow themselves. Like, it's just, while science can explain the technicalities behind it, it's just like, yeah, but how did it get there? How did this come to be? How did these people get this brilliant spark of curiosity to put these things together and make them into something so nice? I mean, that's creativity. That doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from, I feel that it comes from a place where people are blessed with their abilities to think, to create, to make things, to cultivate, and to improve things. It's beautiful to me. And I feel like that is what God is. God is a life force. God is not a force of death and destruction. While God can disassemble things for sure, and does all the time, especially those which were built on faulty foundations and, have repeatedly proven their unworth, right? That's just how I've witnessed things come to be. Like, God doesn't, I feel that the spirit of, I guess you could say, like, goodwill toward man, and what God is meant to represent in any faith, is the ability in people to act on preservation of what is, so that it's not destroyed, so that it's not rearranged in a way that creates more harm than good. Because decisions change things, right? But some decisions cannot change what is meant to be without creating a severe spiritual imbalance. And that severe spiritual imbalance ends up as a debt on the person who changed it. against the will of the universe for stasis and preservation to have remained. And to put that in simple terms, it's like you can make any decision that you like. God gives you that grace. But there are consequences for each and every one of them, and those consequences have full effect and impact over solely your life and your karma based on your choices, right? And it's like, you can't say that someone made a choice if they didn't have enough information to make a choice. So that's another thing, like with respect to the air of deception that is aligned with evil, to deceive someone by like omitting important information, which is why I feel a lot of tarot readers do what they do. They uncover things to help people who are purposely being blinded from what they're meant to have in the way of information. This kind of debt that's being like forced onto people through a lack of disclosure is exactly the karmic retribution that snaps back on them when they least expect it, after having been forgiven so many times for it. And this is super powerful and important to explain to people, because people really think that they get away with things, and it's not that way. It never is that way. I'm saying never because there is not a word that describes how it does not work and how it will not work beside that word. And it's not a word, that people should just throw around, because the probability of the word never needing to be used is seldom, if at all. But no, it doesn't work to shuffle karma around like that. And it restores and rebalances itself in very unexpected and sometimes painful ways for the person who said, like, when I say painful, I mean we're talking egregious pain for the person who put that energy of deception in order to steal and in order to collect and in order to win at all costs and whatever, at the expense of someone else's lack of information. These things are grievous. Anyway, all of those guilty, I guess we'll find out the most deserved way possible. Anyway, so yeah, this was one of those weekends where there were just there were a lot of attempted interruptions to my piece, and just didn't work out that way. I I feel like universally God is very real, and God respects our desires to be witnessed, but God does not forgive all deeds unless it is truly petitioned. And I feel like a lot of the deeds that create the loss for others, they require a certain type of penance. But I don't know, man. I'm just saying, it's one of those things. It's one of those things. It's, if you know, you know. That's just what it is. Yeah. I was doing some like kind of techie stuff, but this was more one of those like, this was one of those weekends where I kind of set all the technical stuff down and like meditated, which was nice, I guess. But yeah, there's some crazy political stuff going on. There's a lot of infighting right now having to do with legalities, what's allowed to be done without accordance to the law, which is why, like, if you paid attention to the tarot reading, some of the stuff I was talking about seemed like direct information of like what's going on in the current events, which kind of freaked me out, because like that could have applied to a lot of different things that were occurring, that have been occurring but that have probably occurred within the last like few weeks or so, or even a few days, which was kind of what I guess took me aback, because I was like, wait, hold on a second. These are things that were not like outright explained to me, but like I had heard about in passing. And there are like, you know, there are hearings taking place that have to do with like how correct it is by due process for certain things to happen without it being reviewed. And um, this one particular situation was Joe Biden being impeached. That I guess I think it was Senator Kennedy was, I think he's in Kentucky, right? He was livid during one of his deliveries recently because there were some policies about like review that were not being followed, and he was super upset about it. And it's like I don't really follow politics like very strictly. It's just if something pops up on an algorithm or something, I might click on it, see what's going on with the world events, and you know try to make some sense of where that stuff is going. And it's I mean, it's good to pay attention to it. It's just not great to be so obsessed with it that it controls everything about your life and your discussions and stuff. It's just good to have it like, floating around in a conversation here and there to like gauge I guess you could say like the understanding generally of what people know about what's going on, not only with the world at large, but like where they stand within that based on what is overlooked, because that stuff impacts other decisions over time. So I guess it was kind of enlightening to see that there was a conflict, because that conflict actually trickles down and affects other things if it's not addressed. And while it can be uncomfortable to see how that transpires in a way that shows how angry people really are about it, it's a rightful anger to feel like your rights are being completely overwritten for the sake of something being done. I mean, it's that's kind of why there's a constitutional basis for stuff. It's why the Bill of Rights was introduced. It's why people have made decisions over the course of history to make things a certain way in their place, and it's to protect people. So I guess it's good that it was addressed. But that's kind of where my attention was this weekend. It was one of those where among all the other things I had been doing, there was some attention placed on that for the sake of just keeping up with I guess what kinds of decisions are being made, because we as civilians, like we delegate other people's ability to speak on our behalves in the Senate based on what it is that we stay current with, what it is we know is going on. So once in a while it's healthy to tune in and see where stuff is going, but like to see to see that there's a lot of dissent about it. I mean, it's good to ask where that's coming from and like who's in charge of defense of certain principles and why they would have been overlooked or overwritten, and in whose favor. It's I find that to be one of the more crucial parts of paying attention to politics, because in politics it is something of a tactical sort of thing. It's not a game whatsoever, but it is very tactical in a sense where if you've ever played a tactics game, and this is something as simple as like checkers or a turn-based tactical game or something like that, it's a bit like that. And to see what moves are being made and to understand them for the impacts that these moves can have, that's kind of the root of paying attention to history and studies in social behavior and stuff like that, because it gives you an idea of who has social influence over some decisions being made, and who economically and socially it impacts or helps throughout the world. And not all not all representations in the world have human rights at the core of its priorities. And that's one of the things that it might be worth paying attention to. Because if these are the things that are taking precedent, the lack of human rights is taking precedent over things running well or, operating as they should, it's a cause for concern. Because my question personally would be, well, how did we get to a point where human rights became what overrode the understanding of what is rightful to a person? Like, how many people truly are in a place of power to create an authority that dismisses human rights in favor of decisions being made? And that is a core facet of understanding one's personal power in any kind of political context, because that's not just in the Senate. That's also like, that's interpersonal. That has to do with just social natures in general. It has to do with what a person would be doing in their social life day to day in their community. It's a public facing kind of issue. It has to do with people's perceptions versus what laws act as parameters, or like, borders to protect what a person can or cannot suffer for the sake of their own preservation, if we're going to go back to preservation. um it's I just look at it like, for people to have the ability to create a lack of discernment because people are being taken advantage of and don't know how, this is an issue in any context that it would be applied. But anyway, yeah, it's getting late. This has been Death College. I'm going to wrap this particular podcast episode up. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for being here. It's always a pleasure to post for you guys. I'm really grateful for everyone who's been paying attention to the blog with their most genuine interest at heart. And, as always, I know there's going to be haters that try to make themselves known and present and aware of what I'm doing, but they don't matter. Like, I think it's like crucial for them to understand that no one is paying attention to them, and I'm certainly not. I just happen to be a realistic person that knows that not everyone is going to like me. The thing is, though, I'm a really likable person. People love me, and I'm really grateful for that. And for those of you who do love me, I love you too. Thank you so much. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your really genuine input and appreciation of me. And I really hope that your appreciation of me is not coming from a place that's distorted and weird. Because I feel like people have normalized the whole stalking thing. And, as a person who's a social media, I guess, person, I don't know if Patreon counts as social media, but like, as a person who creates content, don't obsess, just focus on your best. And that's it. So this has been Death College. Thanks for tuning in to season 7, episode 7 of the Academiagothica official podcast. It's been a pleasure. I will catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.